Everyone, how's your reading going? Just check I've got the microphone turned on, and yes, I do. But it does jolt the phone around. I thought I would talk about The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. As you can see, it is a big book. The reason I was reading it is not from my choice. And excuse me while I cough occasionally. Sorry, just recovering from a cold, and it's left me with a bit of a cough. So anyway, The Count of Monte Cristo. In my book blogging group, one of the ladies said to everyone, "I'd like to read The Count of Monte Cristo. Does anyone else want to do a read-along?" And I said, yeah. Sorry about that. And I said to them, yes, that would be a lovely idea. I'd like to read the book too. Not realising how big it is. I mean, that's huge. And I should have a normal book on my desk somewhere. Well, that's as close to normal as you get from me at the moment. So, you know, huge. And just to illustrate, it's 1,243 pages. And I've finished it. Anyway, so I said, yes, I'd like to read this book. And I'd like to do a read-along. And then in my arrogance, thinking that, well, she told me she's a slow reader. And I said, well, I'm a fast reader. And I didn't have it on my shelf. Looking at the size of this, yes, I would have known if I'd had it on my shelf, but I didn't. I did look. I asked a couple of people, I looked in some libraries, and eventually, when Tracey said that she was a third of the way through or something, I can't remember, I said, oops, I'd better get my backside in gear and get a copy of this book. I did not want to read it on my phone, on ebook. I wanted to read it in physical print. So I went to Cyber's Books, which is closing down. And at that time I could have bought it for $1 if she'd had it. She didn't. I then went to Helena's Books in Bentley, and she didn't have it either. And Ben's Books, brand new bookshop, also in Bentley, didn't have it. They have it listed on their website, but not in stock. So anyway, eventually I went into Dimmicks. I actually rang them first, and they said, yes, we have a copy on the shelf. I told the lady at Dimmicks about how I was trying to find it and couldn't find it anywhere. And eventually I bought it at Dimmicks for $18. And when I looked at it on the shelf and I realised it was this big, my heart sank just a little bit. I can feel it a little bit further down in my body than it was before. And I started it. And that was, I'm guessing, about 5 weeks ago or so. I'd have to actually look it up. I haven't done that sort of looking up to see how long it took me. I finished it last night. Tracey of Carpe, Librum, finished it a week or so ago. So it's that old parable of the hare and the tortoise. She read consistently, almost every day, 3%. I read inconsistently, and I started late. So yeah, I'm a fast reader, but if I'd started earlier, I would have finished it earlier. And we would have had more to talk about, because last night I just said, that's enough. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to finish it. I had 83 pages to go. 83, 80, one of those, it's not much. And I sat down and I finished it. I had a cup of a hot drink on my side. I had some fruit I think I was eating. Oh yeah, I had a couple of mandarins there which I peeled and had ready to just eat, and I sat there and I read. And I ate my mandarins and I had my hot drink, and eventually I finished it. And then I told her that I had finished, and she went, yay! That was nice. And then we sat down and we actually talked about it via Facebook Messenger. So that was interesting. She's got thoughts about it that I didn't have. And what I will be doing is actually sitting down and writing about this probably on Tuesday. So today it's really just the experience of me actually reading this stupid, huge book. It's possibly the longest book I've ever read. For Tracey of Carpe Librum, that is the longest book she's ever read, but she keeps more notes than me about the book she's reading. So it's very close to it. And do you count anthologies? In which case it's possibly the second longest book I've read, but I'd have to go back and find the anthology that was like also that big. So that big or bigger, I don't remember. And just have a look at that and see if that was longer. I don't remember. Possibly the longest single book I've ever read. I did not enjoy it. The only reason I got through is because I was reading along with Tracey. That's the only reason I got through. I would have stopped it about 4 weeks ago. Less than halfway through, because I found it awkward to read. Being a fast reader, things that slow me down a lot, I find I don't read as much. Except, of course, for non-fiction, that slows me down a lot. Sorry about my coughing. Germs are not contagious over video. You need to know that, if you didn't already. Yeah, so it slowed me down, which I find annoying. There's a lot of romance in it, which I just don't like. And there's a lot of detail. So anyone putting this amount of detail in would be told, divide your book up, make it 3 books. But when this was written in 1844 to 1846 or something, I think 1844 to 1846, they actually serialized it. So they published it in a magazine in parts, so 1 chapter a week or 1 chapter a month. It was probably 1 chapter a week, because there's 100 and something chapters, and it took 2 years and change, I think, to publish it. So 1 chapter a week would have been over 2 years. And for me, hang on, I'll come back to that thought in a moment. But they also published it as a big book around about that same time. So for the serialization, it would have meant a person picking up a chapter a week and reading just that chapter. So we're talking reading a book over a period of more than 2 years. I don't know that I have that dedication. Anyway, so and Tracey tells me that Dumas was being paid by the word. So of course you're going to put as many words in as you possibly can if you're going to be paid by the word. So there was a lot of detail that I'm not sure would have been put into a book that was published now. So with all of that, I thank Tracey of Carpe Librum, and I will link her blog down below in the description so you can go and have a look at her. I thank Tracey for making it possible for me to actually finish this book, because I did run out of interest in it quite a way ago, you know, at least there, which is, it's almost halfway. So she just poking a fingernail in the book at random. Okay, so one of the things that I found really awkward when I was keeping up with Tracey excuse me, before she finished the book. I was telling her what chapter I was up to, which is all very well, but this book, now these are not the chapters, these are the notes on the chapters, but you'll see the chapters are headed Roman numerals. I struggle with Roman numerals. I can read translate the first few, but then once you get past 70 or 80, I struggle. And as I said, there's something like 100 and something chapters in this. So the last few chapters, once we got past XCIX, which I think might be 99, but I'm not sure. Once we got into C, it was like, no, I can't remember any of this. So the last chapter was CXVII, and someone who's faster than me has already figured out what that is. So yeah, more than 2 years to publish this book in serial form. More than 2 years. So a word about Tracey. I like her. She's a really likable person. She has been blogging longer than me. I have been writing about books on my blog since 2009, April 2009. That is 16 years. She has just celebrated her 20th anniversary of her blog. 20 years she's been writing about books. And the preparation she goes to with each book, I'm finding absolutely overwhelming, because I wouldn't do that. And in writing terms, she's a plotter and I'm a pantser. So she actually plots what she's doing. She makes notes of various pages so she can go back and get quotes. I might make notes of various pages. In this 1,243 page book, I made that many notes. That's a business card, and I didn't quite fill it. Don't know if I'll use any of that, but anyway. So I am finished, and as I said, I will write about this a bit more on my blog. And just so you, if you want, when I've written it on Tuesday, we'll come back and edit the description to put a link to the page. The writing is good, but there's just so much. And if you're being paid by the word, yeah, I can understand why you would put in that much detail. Anyway, I have this feeling of pleasure at having finished a classic. I have this feeling of pleasure at having finished a book that is so thick. So when you combine the two, classic and a book that is so thick, I'm like, yes, I'm so happy with that. And it was really lovely to have someone there to discuss it. If I could actually have been reading roughly at the same time span, the same time frame as her, that would have been a lot better. Next time, I will endeavour to get it right. Although it's really hard when I'm such a fast reader and everyone else is being a bit more engaged in the work. But anyway, we'll get there. I'm going to suggest that next year we read Moby Dick, because I want to read Moby Dick, and I have tried and I've not got past the first couple of pages, and I think with the addition of someone on the other end putting in quotes, putting in bits and pieces, saying, I think this, that or the other, I might actually get through it. I got through this, all the romance and so many pages. Maybe I can get through anything. There you go. Confidence for you. So on that note, subscribe down below or not, as you choose, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.